Board Member Truss, can you hear us okay? Oh, okay. Board Member Truss, can you give us a quick audio check? You want to unmute your microphone in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen?
Hello, checking 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me okay?
Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. If you could just keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking, and remember, if you're going to say something, everybody please remember to unmute.
Gotcha.
Are we ready to go at 4 o'clock sharp?
We are. President Nixon to.
I didn't get that. Okay.
Please check your audio, please, and unmute the microphone.
1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
I could hear you, President Del Valle.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yes, we're checking on Dr. Jackson.
Hey. Hi, I had to leave the other computer because the video wasn't showing up. Can everybody see and hear me?
Yes, yes, we could hear you.
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
I can
Thank
hear
you.
you, but not see you.
Stella, before you get started, I don't know if you have somebody there helping you, but you're the only audio that goes back and forth, and it sounds weird when you speak.
Oh, can we switch me up to someone, or can I do yours or no? If I work from yours.
No, you sound fine now. So it might have been just there's somebody else there that's also listening, and that's causing the noise. So whoever's next to you is maybe a little away. When you close to yours, it's fine. But just whatever was this time it sounded right.
Okay.
There's a lot of connection.
Are we ready to start? President, to begin the board meeting.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chicago Board of Education meeting. Today is March 25th, 2020. We are holding today's meeting electronically via Zoom. I am Miguel del Valle. On behalf of my fellow board members, thank you for joining us today. The regular meeting of Wednesday, March 25th, 2020 is hereby called to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Member Sotelo,
Here,
Member Truss,
Here.
Member Tad Breland,
Here.
Vice President Rivelluri,
Here. You cut out, Estella.
Member Melendez,
Here,
Member Melendez,
here. You were cut off for a minute.
Member Rome,
Here.
Member Rome, and President Del Valle.
Here.
We have 7 members present. There is a quorum. I would also like to recognize Dr. Janice Jackson, our CEO, Joseph Moriarty, our General Counsel, Latanya McDade, our Chief Education Officer, Arnie Rivera, our Chief Operating Officer. And Joshua Torres, our Honorary Student Board Member, will also join us, but he will not be on screen at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of us on the screen and those of us online that join in, this is certainly a first. It's a first for all of us. Our meeting today is being held electronically in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and as permitted by Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07. Well, it was still very important that we conduct critical business for CPS. This is a new procedure for us. So please bear with us as we work with this new methodology. I want to speak to our students, families, teachers, principals, and all CPS employees. Over the last several weeks, our lives have been upended and our schedules have been turned upside down and all for the greater good. As difficult as this has been for all involved, I believe that the actions taken by our governor truly will help us flatten the curve of this pandemic. But we know how much you are sacrificing, and everyone is sacrificing. I visited some of the food distribution sites at a number of our schools, and I listened to parents. I heard their stories, of course, standing 6 feet away. And some of those stories are heartbreaking. In particular, I would like to acknowledge the folks we have on our front line, the principals, the APs, the food service workers and security guards. I've heard how worried our principals are about their students, seen how compassionate our food service workers are, and providing service with a smile, and also how reassuring our security personnel have been at the different locations. These folks are all on the front lines. They're out there servicing the public, and it's important we acknowledge this service and dedication to our students and families. To Governor Pritzker and Mayor Lightfoot, thank you both for the leadership you've shown in this troubling time. And I applaud your courage in making these very difficult decisions. To CEO Jackson and the leadership team at CPS, including Chief Education Officer McDade and COO Rivera, thank you. I know you and your teams have been working around the clock to support our students, families, and employees in these challenging times. Your leadership has been exemplary, as always, and your dedication to serving our students and families is greatly appreciated by the City of Chicago. The following will be the order of business. We'll start with CEO remarks, followed by Chief Education Officer McDade remarks, vote on the public agenda item, starting with the board rule, followed by committee updates and announcements, public participation via electronic format, discussion of public agenda items, vote on public agenda items, vote on executive session items, and then adjournment. CEO, Dr. Jackson, we are ready for your remarks.
Thank you, President Del Valle, for those remarks as well as your comments, and also stopping out to visit some of our schools. I know that our principals and frontline staff really did appreciate that. I want to start by welcoming everyone and thanking them for joining us today. And while the format of this board meeting is very different than any other meeting, I think, as you stated in your remarks, it was critically important that we continue the work so that we can continue to support CPS students every single day. I have to say that these have been a trying few days. The past few days or few weeks have really been trying, but I've never been more proud to be a part of Chicago Public Schools, specifically just seeing the resolve and the support that we have received from so many of our administrators, facility staff, nutrition staff, and so many others who are working tirelessly every single day to make sure our families have what they need. I also want to thank many of the people who have been stepping up in the philanthropic community to support our students in schools, and we will continue to rely on their support in the coming days. Finally, I want to lift up Mayor Lightfoot's leadership and her support for Chicago Public Schools. She did announce that school will be Sorry, I got to transition, but I'll keep talking. She did announce that school will be in session until April 21st. And as we continue to observe that, as well as Governor Pritzker's stay put order, we will be making sure that we provide the necessities to our families every single day. Finally, we're going to be asking the board today to vote on additional funding so that we can continue to provide emergency support for our families and schools throughout this. Specifically, we're asking for funds to support digital learning, emergency personnel, as well as the ongoing meal program. So I really look forward to answering the board's questions related to that request, but we really do need your support in order to continue to be nimble and support the children and families of Chicago. I'm going to turn it over. That concludes my remarks, Mr. President.
Thank you. We're going to hear from Chief McDade before we open it up for questions for both Chief McDade and CEO Jackson.
Thank you.
Chief McDade.
Thank you, President Del Valle. Since the closing of schools on March 17th, we have gone into overdrive to make sure the children and parents have what they need during this challenging time. Our nutrition support services team and additional staff have now provided more than 1 million healthy meals for families. Our facilities team has been deep cleaning all CPS schools and will continue this process to make sure every learning environment is safe and healthy before students and staff return. In addition, dedicated CPS employees have been staffing the district's call centers every day, supporting both parents and CPS staff. They have responded to more than 4,700 phone calls and emails thus far. And the support that they are providing is giving our CPS community the facts and reassurances they need during this challenging time. Finally, there are thousands of CPS educators who are finding creative, innovative ways to keep students engaged in learning. Prior to the close of school last Tuesday, our teachers and academic teams worked around the clock to develop take-home packets for their students. And the K-12 enrichment resources we have made available online have been accessed more than 11,000 times in just over 1 week. These learning resources are available now at cps.edu/coronavirus. And later this week, we will be rolling out additional guidance and resources for our staff and families, including information on an equity-focused initiative to deliver additional devices to our highest need students. We recognize that being away from the classroom has an even greater impact on our highest need students, and we are committed to doing whatever we can to help bridge the digital divide for our families. All of these efforts, from food service to our call centers to academic enrichment, will continue until we are on the other side of this health crisis. And as the situation with COVID-19 evolves, so will the approaches that we take to support our students, our families, and our staff. We have canceled end-of-year assessments for our students, including NWEA, We are working with all of our education partners to make sure that students will have access to the critical assessments that are tied to graduation, college entry, grade promotion, and admission to selective enrollment schools. We will be seeking authority from the Board of Education to amend the school quality rating policy and allow all schools to go into the new year with an inability to rate and carry their current status of good standing or intensive support or provisional support into the 2020-2021 school year. We want to thank everyone for their patience as we flesh out our response to this public health emergency. And we promise to continue updating all CPS stakeholders as new decisions are made and new resources become available. This remains a very fluid situation, and there are many outstanding questions left to be addressed. Our commitment to our communities is that we will be transparent and provide regular updates to our community. Please expect to hear from us early and often as we develop policies in response to this public health emergency. Our teams have been working day and night to develop new strategies to ensure students can continue their education and puts the interests of our students and teachers first and foremost. And I am confident our team is delivering on this vision. Mr. President, this concludes my prepared remarks.
Thank you, Chief McDade. Any questions for CEO Jackson or Chief McDade from board members? There are, yes, and by the way, since we're in this format, just jump in and we'll, if we're trying to jump in and someone else is speaking, then I would ask that we wait till the speaker finishes and then jump in with the question.
Thanks, President Del Valle. I had a couple questions. The first is I really appreciate the efforts of all CPS staff to help support children during this time and to keep them engaged in learning. I know none of us know how this pandemic is going to evolve or how long schools will have to be closed for public safety. Chief McDade or anyone else, can you share a little bit more at this point about the plan for how students will continue to learn in the coming months, or is that coming soon?
Yes, that is coming soon. We will be providing guidance to all of our school administrators and teachers and network support staff in the coming days on how we will continue remote learning. We do know that currently the Illinois State Board of Education is preparing guidance for all schools, all districts within the state. And we want to make sure that our guidance is in alignment with what comes from ISB, but we are planning to provide all schools the resources, supports, and expectations and guidance to be able to build remote learning plans for their unique school communities in the coming days.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Dwayne Truss.
Yes.
Just a quick comment. First of all, I want to thank all CPS staff and leadership. I got to commend you all for your ESPN in terms of being proactive and forward thinking, especially when it comes to the digital divide in our communities. I thought it was very good to have Bill on the phone earlier, Chief Education Officer McDade, to answer those questions about the digital divide. So again, I just want to commend and just thank you, for forward thinking.
And President Del Valle, I had one other question. I'm not sure who this is for. I was wondering if people want to support CPS students and staff during this time, what can they do?
I can take that question. So a couple of things. First, we are directing people to the Children First Fund, which is CPS's 501c3. And the first order of business is to support the Compassion Fund, which is a fund that CFF has managed for years. We typically have used those dollars to support families with unexpected deaths of children, but obviously this rises to the occasion as a really important and emergency event. And so we have been directing people to go there. And what that will provide is support for meal delivery service. We do have some families who are unable to access the food distribution sites. And so we have been able to continuously ramp up our ability to support families where the parents may be unable to access those sites, or students may be too young to go back and forth to the school. We're also preparing supply kits for many of our families. We feel like the district, as well as the city and state, have several places to help those who may be food insecure. But what we're also learning and hearing through the phone calls to the CPS hotline is that people need some of their basic needs met. And so we are directing people to that Compassion Fund who want to support CPS directly. And I do want to thank many of those in the philanthropic community that have already stepped up early to support our students, and we thank them, and we hope to see more support in the coming days. I also know that the city of Chicago has ways in which people can support through the United Way and the Chicago Community Trust, and all of that information can also be found on the city of Chicago's webpage related to Corona.
President Del Valle, I have a question for Chief Jackson. Notice if I have a friend that explicitly asked me to find out where she can donate to, you know, at this very difficult time. So where would she find the Children First Fund in the Chicago Public Schools website?
Yes, let me pull up the website right now so I can recite it.
Okay.
I should know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You have a lot on your mind.
I know. All right. It is www. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure this is the right one. All right. It is childrenfirstfund.org. Again, that is childrenfirstfund.org.
And before I mute myself, I also want to join other board members to express my appreciation for everything that everyone is doing at CPS. It was in the briefing I had with Chief McDade, it was very encouraging to ratify how present the equity issues are in the response that Chicago Public Schools is putting forth. So my big appreciation to every single person that I know is working on this.
Thank you, all of you, for your gratitude. We appreciate it.
Dr. Jackson?
Yes.
We talked a little bit about this. In speaking with parents, many of them are lacking in the basic necessities. I talked to one principal who said, we have to have some people who need Pampers, for example, for their children. And then some parents who are wondering what's going to happen now that they're unemployed and they're at home, and in some cases both father and mother are out of jobs, and they need information on what to do. Now we know that Congress is moving on approving legislation that's going to make unemployment benefits available to families. My question is, how can CPS help in getting information out?
Yeah.
So that parents know, for example, the number of the unemployment office to seek benefits and other referrals that services that are available that can help with basic needs.
Yep. So we as we talked about this, some of the things that we'd like to do is continuing to use all of our platforms, that is the blast email system, social media platforms, etc., robocalls to get the word out. We have prioritized food and now the remote learning initiative will be prioritized. But we are also thinking about how we can use the folks who are staffing our food distribution sites to also disseminate that information, because they are, for the most part, the only individuals having that kind of regular touch point with a lot of our families. We're also, as we transition into remote learning, and we'll have more details about this in the coming days, in addition to asking our educators to support students through instruction every day, we also are going to be providing them with information so that they can conference with their students and families to share information that they may need in order to get through this closure. And so part of that will be training all of our educators on where to go for accurate information, so that we're sharing accurate information, but more importantly, to give them kind of a one-pager or a short document that points people in the right direction. Any barriers that we can reduce to people getting their questions answered or access to all of these emergency resources, we're going to use our ability to communicate with families in order to do that. So based on our conversation the other day, you're going to be hearing more about that in the coming days as we launch our remote learning program.
Very good.
Yeah.
Are there other
I have another
comments?
I have a question. Hi. I again would like to join folks in just saying thank you very much for all of your tireless work in these days. It seems like weeks have passed, but it's really just been days. So thank you all. I too, you mentioned, and this may come up more in our public agenda items, but I know that you're working a lot right now on trying to get devices. It's been mentioned multiple times that we know there's an existing digital divide within our city. As we move and start making plans, again, waiting on some guidance from ISB about what remote learning could look like in our district. Can you talk more about what your thoughts are, or how we can, and our broader communities can be supportive in thinking about getting young people who don't have devices or don't have access to the internet, those things that they need?
Yeah, so we'll be, and Latanya, feel free to jump in as well, but I mean, that's a big part of this. So number one, one of the reasons why our approach is a two-pronged approach, obviously we want to leverage technology with e-learning, but we're terming this remote learning or continuing education because we will be employing multiple modes in order to interact with our students and families. The first phase is obviously identifying those areas where there is a digital divide and where students lack the either access to devices or access to reliable internet. We also know, unfortunately, that this is an issue for some of our teachers. And so we're trying to make sure that we're not only inventorying and paying attention to those access issues for our students, but we also have to make sure that all of our educators are set up in order to do this. And so these are some of the things behind the scenes that we're working through. We have started to order devices and we will be publishing the criteria for distributing those. Obviously, we have to start with the highest priority areas and places where the need is most great. And so without sharing too much right now, we will be getting that out, but we're going to be working through our school administrators in order to identify those students and families in the coming days. We know that the need is greater than what our current supply is, which is why the authorization is critically important. We are working with suppliers. There is a backlog, as you can imagine. Everybody in the United States is purchasing these types of devices in order to continue education. And so we're getting in line as quickly as possible. And we are also leveraging many of the tools that we have already. Google Meet is one that is accessible to everybody. So really using a lot of those platforms and some of the e-learning tools that have been used in class for enrichment or additional support will also be utilized. So we have a lot of resources. It's really about coordinating that and training our staff. And then finally, we want to work with our teachers as we transition into e-learning, not only to provide some, semblance of a regular school day, but to also address some of those social and emotional needs that we know exist. From everybody that I've been speaking to who has had an opportunity to start to engage remotely, there is a need to really unpack and understand what's going on. And so that's even greater for folks who don't have access to the internet. They may feel like they don't know what's going on in general. And so we're going to have to do a number of things very quickly. And our ability to move quickly and be nimble is critically important. So we thank the board for supporting us in those endeavors. Latanya, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think you covered it all. We did release a survey to principals, so we're already starting to collect some data around need in the individual communities. And I know that Phil is working with service providers right now and working with the city to kind of get a saturation report to see where the needs are in terms of service. So a lot of those wheels are already in motion, but still a lot of work left to do in order to really determine where the greatest needs are as we work to secure devices and to secure internet service so that we can get people connected.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I
for-
do. I just want to add a couple of things. One is, again, echo my thanks to the entire leadership team, because there has been a whole army of people behind who have been really responsive and really stepping up and doing the best they can for our students, for our staff, for our administrators, and actually, perhaps more importantly, you know, our staff that never get all the credit for cleaning the buildings, for doing the lunches, that are really, really critical during these times. And to me, you know, that's one of the most critical aspects for this request, to make sure that, you know, we delegate with confidence so that you can act with speed, with agility, and with nimbleness to make sure that we're taking care of all of those people in the front line, for the overtime that they're doing, for all the supplies that they're going to need. That being said, I do want to make a comment because it was really, really helpful, and to echo the board member Truss's comments, really helpful to have a deep dive into the request with Phil, and getting the debrief as to how are we looking to use some of these funds. And listen, you know, the demand for the digital divide is far greater than what we have resources. So there's a reason for the survey. There's a reason for the assessment, but we're not going to address the total digital divide in weeks. There's a reason why we had a 5-year plan. So I also want to make sure that we put this in context, because while we prioritized where the greatest needs are, by the way, that was already in the works. We were already planning to do so. We already have inventory available. We already have inventory that we're going to repurpose and accelerate that process to make sure that people that need those resources get it and they're able to use it. But we also know full well that that's not going to meet the total demand. So I also want to make sure that I ask for the help of the community, the people that are listening to this, the people in the areas where they already have been working day in and day out, to make sure they work with us, because we will not be able to do it all alone. We're going to need the help of a lot of other people. The resources are finite, the finances are finite, and so we're going to do the best we can with what we have. I have the total confidence in the leadership team that has administered to date, as they've proven to date. But we also ask the people to have patience with us as we uncover the unknowns and then prioritize as best we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are great points.
Any other comments or questions? When we get to the agenda item that includes the public agenda, we'll have another opportunity to talk a little more about this issue. And I'm talking about the agenda item that authorizes spending. If there are no other questions at this point, we will now proceed with the vote on the board.
Miguel,
Yes.
President Del Valle, sorry. There was one other thing, if we're ready, about to switch to the board public agenda. Is that what we're doing now?
No, we're going to vote on a resolution that authorizes us to conduct the meeting in this format and to proceed with votes.
Yeah, sorry. So I have one additional comment for this section then. I also wanted to take this time to announce that in line with the city's new program on collections, CPS will also not default anyone who fails to pay any monies that are owed, and will not initiate any new collections. And that this will remain in effect as long as this current emergency endures. And I don't know, Joe, if you'd like to say anything else. I wanted to make sure that we had that in the public record, and to have our general counsel confirm that as well.
Yes, I can confirm that we have put in motion actions with our collection firms and among our attorneys to cease all collection activity that would default anyone who fails to pay debts owed to the board until further notice. And that will remain in effect until this emergency has passed.
Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Let's proceed with the board rule of public agenda item regarding emergency authority in the event of a declared state of emergency, and that would be on an interim basis. Board members, do you have any questions or comments regarding this rule? It's basically the rule that authorizes us to proceed. Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This item is RU1 on the public agenda, and for the record, I will restate the title. RU1, Adopt Board Rule 2-4.2, Emergency Authority in the event of a declared state of emergency on an interim basis. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Sotelo,
Yes.
Member Truss,
Yes.
Member Todd Breland,
Yes.
Vice President Rivaluri,
Yes.
Member Melendez,
Yes.
Member Rome,
Yes.
President Del Valle.
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. This item is adopted by the board.
Okay. Thank you. There are no committee updates for this meeting, so we'll proceed with announcements. Please use our website, cpsboe.org, if you need to seek assistance or want to meet with a board member during office hours. During this time, we will be offering office hours through Zoom or conference call only. No in-person meetings, but we will still be holding office hours. Madam Secretary, please share the details of the next board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please note that the next board meeting scheduled for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020 at the CPS Loop office. Advanced registration will open at 10:30 a.m. Monday, April 20th, 2020, and will close Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. or until all slots are filled, whichever is first. If anyone has any questions about this process, please contact the board office for our assistance. I would like to note for the record that if the closures are extended and schools are not in session, the board will hold another virtual meeting on April 22nd. Please monitor the cpsboe.org website for more information. Thank you.
Let's now proceed with today's public participation session. As a reminder, union representatives will speak before public participation, and any elected officials will speak after the conclusion of public participation. Madam Secretary, please share the rules for public participation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we begin public participation, I would like to provide directions. I would like to note that members of the public who registered to speak were given information to access this meeting by dialing a number and using their phone. We did this so that speakers with limited or no access to internet, or who may have weak internet connection, or who don't have the necessary equipment to participate in a video call, could still participate using their phones. We want to make sure that even during these challenging times, our families and community members will still be heard. Speakers, please listen while I provide directions for public participation. In order to facilitate and expedite public participation, I will be calling speakers out of order and grouping them by topic. I will call your name and number when it is your turn to speak. Once you hear your name, please state your name for the record. I will then start the 2-minute timer. When there are 30 seconds remaining, I will inform you so that you can proceed to conclude your remarks to allow for the next speaker to begin. And Mr. President, before we begin with the speakers list, I would like to note that we do have Jesse Sharkey, the CTU president, that will address the board, followed by Chris Bayrind, the CTU Acts Division Chair. Mr. Sharkey?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman DeValier, CEO Jackson. I want to thank all the educators, parents, students, and everyone who makes public schools go. It's been a trying time. The schools that yesterday provided learning, support, and solace are still going to support you tomorrow. I want everyone here to know that the Chicago Teachers Union, the people we represent, the teachers, clinicians, and PSRPs are committed to that. I know the CPS administration has been working nonstop to respond to this crisis, and I know that because I've been on the phone with the leadership at all hours of the day and night, 7 days a week. And it hasn't been perfect. There's been a surprise or two that that weren't perfect, but I appreciate not only your work, but also your willingness to work together. And what I hope that means is that we can support our students both now and after this pandemic has subsided. I think we have to confront the equity needs head on for our school communities and for our city. And as CPS grapples with the consequences of the coronavirus, we have to be talking about the need for the right to recover. CPS is proposing $75 million in COVID-19 related expenditures, and we have to, and those expenditures have to speak to the needs and the broad equity demands that we've wanted for our students and families in the contract and beyond. Just to reiterate, the CTU is ready to work shoulder to shoulder with CPS and the board to accelerate efforts to meet the equity needs of our students and their families. We need each other to get this done. We put together a package of legislation, which we're calling the Right to Recovery, which is being advanced by local and state legislators. And we ask that CPS and the board join us in urging state legislators and ISB to advance the goals, not just in Chicago, but across the state for every public school student. And I won't go into them in great detail, but it includes rights like immediate housing for students in temporary living situations, healthcare supports, trying to fast track the manufacture and provision of computer devices for students. Some of those things are broad, but we could use CPS support. And then I'll wrap up on this idea. There's a number of things also which are really linchpin issues that have to do with the conditions in schools, both now when we start coming back. For example, school nurses, trauma support, smaller class sizes, and the expansion of supports for special education and homeless students. So as we seg out of remote learning back into our school communities, we're going to need to work together to provide infrastructure that supports what all of our students are doing. Again, the CTU's rank and file is committed to volunteering. We'd like to see opportunities to support needs within school communities and within the larger city. And we look forward to making sure that everyone knows that public schools remain committed to our students and our communities, and that includes members of the CTU and the people who make the school system go.
Thank you, Mr. Sharkey. And our next speaker, please, Chris Bayrind, CTU Acts Division Chair.
Thank you for the work that you do. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Chairman DeValier, members of the board, for the work that you do, and everyone working in the CPS system. I'm a leader of the charter division. We've had some real concerns around some of our operators. Just before this, few days before the schools were closed, one of the operators, Youth Connections Charter School, a school they operate called Youth Connections Leadership Academy, they told us they wanted to lay out 5 of the 13 members of the bargaining unit there, cutting off their health insurance on April 1st. We were able to, we reached out to them and said, this is crazy, you can't do this, so we postponed it till the end of the year. Another operator, CICS, are flouting federal law and union busting during this time of crisis by refusing to bargain for new members who want to join our bargaining unit. We've had to file unfair labor practice charges. That same employer has put out a rubric with 100 and some odd different demands for members there to be doing during this crisis. Like, it's just a totally unreasonable set of demands. And luckily we have a union, and we may have to use the courts to get them to bargain with us. But this is not a time for distance testing and for crazy evaluation systems. It's a time to give teachers some autonomy to support students And this board, I think, needs to take some responsibility. There are teachers with kids at home. They can't be expected to respond to emails within 60 minutes. So it really, like, you know, luckily the members who have formed unions, they have a voice and we can negotiate. But I would ask this board also to take some responsibility for the 3/4 of people working in charters who don't have a union, right? Who knows what's happening if they're getting laid off, if their working conditions are being, you know, are being, you know, unsustainable, because that has an impact on students. So I would ask this board to please take some responsibility and, you know, and find out what's happening in those schools where people don't have a union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bayron. So, Mr. President, we are ready to call the first speaker. I'll call Dennis Kosuth, speaker number 1, please. And they will get him on the call in a minute.
What should I do? Okay, hello. My name is Dennis Kosuth. I've been a registered nurse for 13 years, a certified school nurse for the past 4, and I've been doing my best to continue to provide services despite schools being out of session. This experience is underlying for me how correct the people who are pushing for more health services and more nurses in our schools were. School nursing should have a huge public health component to it. Staff at all my schools were looking to us to provide education about COVID-19, and before school shut down, I was able to do at least 2 meetings with staff with questions about it, and I wish I had been able to do more with not just staff, but the community. We all know we need more nurses, and nurses at the CTU have been meeting monthly to discuss how to bring more nurses into CPS, and I would be happy to share these ideas that we've discussed with any board member who's interested in talking about it. This crisis has also exposed the shortcomings we have in regards to health in this country generally. Many families don't have a primary care health provider, and many workplaces have been shut down. I can only imagine how many are struggling to figure out bills. And all this is even before the disease has hit this city in the same way that it's hitting New York, or God forbid, the way that Italy is being horribly affected. I'm confident that there are some out there, some nurses who be willing to volunteer to provide further services in this crisis, and they want to bring their skills to the members in their community. This crisis has hit me personally. In addition to my full-time job at CPS, I work 1 8-hour shift a week at a small emergency room in the near South Side. This Friday night, the shift was supposed to be 8 hours, and it became a 15-hour shift because nurses called in sick. We were so short-staffed. I spoke with my supervisor actually this morning. She told me that 2 of the patients I took care of on Friday have tested positive for COVID, one of whom I cared for without wearing a mask or gown because we didn't know that they had the sickness. They said that they will not provide the test for me unless I had any symptoms. So I went and got tested on my own, and I'm worried. I'm worried about myself, my wife, who's a CPS preschool teacher, my 12-year-old CPS student, and my in-laws who live upstairs. I worry not just about myself, but what the future holds for all people in this city. Some say it's only going to affect the old and the sick, and that's the wrong way to look at it. We're all going to be infected. There's resources in this country and they need to be tapped. Whenever children and staff return to schools, we can guarantee that many will have suffered trauma. The trauma of being sick, losing a job, not paying bills, or the worst case scenario, the loss of a family member's life. This is the time for bold action, for making big asks, not holding back on any of our demands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker, Mr. President, is Katie Osgood. She's speaker number 2, followed by Jackson Potter, speaker number 3.
Hi, this is Katie Osgood. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Hey, I'm a special education teacher at Suter Montessori. Hi, Vice President Reveluri, who has kids at our school. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Jackson, Chief McDade, the board, and CPS for helping to make the right call in the midst of these difficult times to not only close schools, but also to implement important measures like canceling the NWA and REACH tests, freezing the SQRP, and seeking waivers, which it sounds like the U.S. Department of Ed has now granted to skip all federal and state mandated tests this school year. But this crisis has really laid bare the reality of our flawed system. This is a system that was set up to punish schools for attendance in the middle of a global pandemic when we needed sick kids and staff to stay home. This is also a system which punishes schools which serve the highest needs students. We talk about equity all the time, but those schools get labeled with a scarlet level 2 or 3. And these are the schools which serve the highest numbers of students with disabilities, students with trauma, students of color, students in poverty, students in temporary living situations, and recent immigrants. And those are the schools which bear the brunt of the obsessive test prep, the micromanaging, the bully administrators, squeezing out of activities like history, art, and project-based learning, obscene attendance incentives, and even the pushing out of low-scoring students, such as students that I serve, students with IEP. We were already plagued with scandal before the COVID-19 crisis hit. The recent IG report showed there were testing irregularities for the NWA, essentially invalidating the test. This result is inevitable, though. This system creates massive perverse incentives to do everything possible to game the system. This is not about individual failing, but it's a system that is set up to fail. Those of us in the schools know the truth, that the NWA is an especially bad test. I've seen kids have mental health breakdowns in the middle of testing, pulling out eyelashes, banging heads on the desk, needing to be ambulanced to psychiatric facilities due to the insane pressure of this one test. Now is the time to dump the NWA as a high-stakes measure permanently, and to allow educators to use it as a tool, but not tied to school ratings or teacher evaluation or selective enrollment or student retention. Let's abolish and not just freeze the SQRP school rating system also. And I'm going to say that one more time. It's time to abolish that system. We can come up with something better working with all the stakeholders.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next speaker, Mr. President, is Jackson Potter, speaker number 3, followed by Marissa Combs, speaker number 4. Mr. Potter?
Hi, first, thanks for the courage of renaming Columbus Day. Your bold leadership is needed more now than ever. So while social isolation is tough, the real crisis, I think we all know, will happen later when parents have their double mortgage payments and utility bills. For that reason, the CTU and our housing committee is asking you to support lift the ban on rent control at the state legislature. We are also asking you to support no evictions of our students ever, not just during COVID-19, but because evictions will spike in the aftermath. We need a lasting solution to foreclosures and the devastating impacts of eviction. So we're asking you to halt all business with any financial institutions that will not adopt that provision in their contracts with you. We're also asking that you support a community benefits agreement for the Obama Library, adopt a policy of no school closures or displacements in and around the proposed area, support Representative Ramirez and her proposal in the state legislature to double homeless prevention funds. We also need mortgage and rent freezes to delay those payments, not double payments in the future. Take that leadership seriously, step up. And lastly, we need a more robust public sector while this catastrophe is going to try and ravage a weakened foundation. Why not deputize under and unemployed parents to become STLS coordinators as we need to ramp up services, deputize unionized custodians as we need to clean more. We know COVID's not going away. We need Chromebooks. We need free internet. Let's pressure corporations to do the right thing. We need cash support for our undocumented parents where they can come to schools where they trust their teachers and staff. And then lastly, and I know I'll wrap up, our housing committee at the CTU would like to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. It can be Zoom. I think it needs to be with the city's Department of Housing so we can pull together a package of enhanced protections for our most vulnerable students in this critical period. Please let us know if we can do this in the next week. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Potter. Our next speaker, Mr. President, is Marissa Combs, speaker number 4, followed by Nora Noonan, speaker number 5. Ms. Combs?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Good evening, President Del Valle, members of the board, Dr. Jackson. My name is Marissa Combs, and I'm the data analyst with the Illinois Network of Charter Schools. We at INCS would like to take the opportunity today to thank you for your leadership during the COVID-19 outbreak. Your clear communication, steady guidance, and online resources have been a tremendous asset to Chicago families. We are especially thankful for Bing Howell and Hal Woods for their partnership during this time. We at INCS have worked hard to disseminate these resources to the charter community. We've convened charter leaders for regular calls and provided frequent email updates to member schools. In addition, alongside our partners at the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, we've worked hard to ensure equitable funding and resources at the federal level for all schools. Finally, we want to commend the hard work and sacrifice from the charter community over the past few weeks. Thank you for working tirelessly to continue to serve Chicago students and families during this challenging moment. As the district considers transitioning into remote learning opportunities and online educational provision, we urge you to consider providing additional resources to those families who lack access to connectivity or to the technology needed to access remote opportunities. In the charter community, we serve many families that fit that description. Let's work together to address this challenge. INCS is here to support the district in any way possible. We look forward to working with you more closely in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. Mr. President, we'll continue with the speakers list. Nora Noonan, speaker number 5, followed by the group from Lincoln Park, Joe Schachter, number 6, Dawn Gluntz, number 9, Eurydice Crones, number 10, Rick Lenkov, number 11, and Bill Quinlan, number 13.
Hello, my name is Nora Noonan. I am in 5th grade at Kellogg Elementary. The last time I, along with my fellow students, spoke to you was at the last after-hours board meeting back in December regarding the need for an addition to Kellogg, which we're still advocating. While we're in the middle of a pandemic, this does not seem quite as important right now. What does seem important is the safety of everyone. CPS and you, the board, have made tough decisions to close down all the schools. This is no doubt a difficult decision. It was the right decision, choosing safety over schooling. I know it is hard for all of us. I miss my teachers and my friends, and I am feeling scared. All we hear about is the coronavirus and how many people are sick and even dying. So thank you for making the hard decision of closing our schools. I also want to thank the administration and the janitorial personnel for being on the front lines, disinfecting our school while continuing to provide meals for many of my fellow students. Thank you for seeing how important our schools are to us and both as students and to our community. Our schools are the foundation of our neighborhood. We have been told that this may take some time to pass. We might even miss the rest of the school year. Yet, when the virus passes, I know it will. Then we get back to normal. I will encourage the board to make the capital investment to Kellogg, a long-term investment in the form of an addition. All children will have access to Kellogg. All children will have the environment they needed to be the best that they can. And most of all, the new addition will provide hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noonan, for your remarks. Our next speaker, Mr. President, Joe Schachter, please.
Thank you. Again, my name is Joe Schachter. My son is a Lincoln Park High School sophomore, and I realize that right now the coronavirus is your highest priority, so I appreciate your listening to my concerns. I feel compelled to address you because I believe Lincoln Park is ground zero for many errant CPS policies that were put in place as an extreme reaction to the Hickey Report and the Tribune's Betrayed series. I believe these policies will plague teachers, students, and administrators for years to come. First, by pulling an entire senior administration without visiting the school to set up a smooth transition plan, you have harmed our 2,200 students. Programs and activities have been derailed, technology purchases canceled. Students who felt supported by removed adults are flailing. Our kids asked for answers but were provided none. Second, CPS still has not shared the results of investigations with families. We know Dean Johnson and a teacher were reinstated, but do not know why they were removed or why they were returned. The public, seeing early news stories, believes rampant sexual misconduct took place, which is clearly not the case. But CPS has never corrected this impression. Third, our teachers do not believe CPS cares about them. Students know if they make a claim against the teacher will be removed. And if the claim is false, no repercussions for the student. You can't know our school's reality without being there. I implore you, members of the board and Dr. Jackson, to visit our school when conditions allow, or hold video conferences. Talk to teachers and student
Mr.
leaders.
Schachter, you have 30 seconds.
Learn what your actions have meant for the dedicated educators and wonderful teenagers in our building. Lincoln Park is not your enemy. My son has blossomed at Lincoln Park, but I fear for the future. His school has been turned inside out. Please fix what has been done so our sinking school can be righted and I can again speak positively of being a CPS parent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schachter, for your comments. Our next speaker, Mr. President, Dawn Gluntz.
Hi, my name is Dawn Gluns, and I am a 13-year teacher at Lincoln Park High School. Thank you for listening. I am sharing with you from many of our teachers. The immediate removal of Thuet and Brumfield has gutted Lincoln Park High School. They had been a breath of fresh air in their short tenure at LP and had made more positive changes in 5 months than I've ever seen in my 13 years there. CPS had no plans for supporting LP emotionally or academically, students or staff. We were greeted our first day back by one of the most awful meetings I've ever endured in my 25 years of teaching. The new AIC was rude, disrespectful, and dismissive of the staff at a 7:30 a.m. meeting. We all left our first day with no leadership, angry, and in some in tears. Everything from CPS that has followed has been reactionary and ineffectual. There does not seem to be a plan, just things thrown at us to see what will stick. Observations from our other teachers. Our school is destabilized. Horrible communication, especially with teachers, has contributed to an atmosphere of fear and distrust and loss. No plans were developed to deal with students with behavior issues who either one would be traumatized because of this or two have mental health or behavioral difficulties and would exploit the chaos. We now have no rules at LP. It's like the Wild West. Security assignments seem random. A teacher dealing with sports called downtown. No one got back to that person right away. And when they did, gave them conflicting information and then was told, use your own professional judgment. Isn't that what Thuet and Brumfield did and they got fired for it? We're concerned about what CPS has taught our basketball team.
You have 30 seconds.
They've learned nothing. They need to be told explicitly, your season ended because your team did this. The only people with any type of consequences were Thuet and Brumfield, who are actually addressing the problem. I have personally written 3 letters of recommendations and completed 2 of district inquiries for job applications for my teachers. The only way to fix our school is to listen to us and involve us. And I really appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gluntz, for your comments. Mr. President, our next speaker is Eurydice Krones, speaker number 10.
Thank you. I'm the parent of 2 CPS students, including a Lincoln Park High School freshman. Before his firing, Larry Washington was a beloved coach and part of the Lincoln Park family for more than 22 years. When CPS announced, quote, adult on student, end quote, inappropriate sexual activity by the girls basketball coach, basketball parents gasped. They knew it wasn't true, but no one else would. The world thought a Lincoln Park coach assaulted a student, yet it all boiled down to one text. Yes, just one text, which read, quote, I heard you were upset about practice. Come by the gym after school for some individual instruction. I've got you. Thumbs up emoji, end quote. This player was in a slump and Larry Washington offered to help. That is the kind of coach he is, one who builds confidence and gets players back into the game. Was that one text worthy of his termination? He shouldn't have directly texted the student. Absolutely not. But really, that's grooming. A seasoned veteran without a blemish on his record is now labeled a sexual predator and unemployable in this environment. But what's even more concerning is that the person involved in this fiasco is a high-ranking OSP official. Does that seem like a deep conflict of interest? Should it not at the very least raise serious red flags? Today, when you approve payment of this month's settlements, ask yourself, in these incredibly stressful times, couldn't this money be better spent on sanitizing our schools, buying Chromebooks for those even further isolated without access to Google Classroom? School nurses like the brave gentleman.
You have 30
Yes.
seconds.
Thank you. School nurses like the brave gentleman who spoke earlier. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all the teachers and staff on the front lines for us in this crisis today.
Thank you, Ms. Krones. Our next speaker, Mr. President, Rick Lenkov, speaker number 11. Mr. Lenkov.
Thanks. It's actually Rich, not Rick, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I don't have anything written, just 3 main points I wanted to express. I am the parent of a 4th grader at Agassiz Elementary in Lakeview and a parent of a freshman at Lincoln Park High School. I've been a member of the LSC at both schools over the course of many years. So 3 things. Number 1, I'm not sure why we still aren't getting a more robust distance learning system set up. We see that happening all over the country. Many of the students that our kids are competing with, frankly, are getting, far advanced training similar to what they're getting in the classroom over the internet, and our kids are sitting at home mostly with nothing to do. And this is through no fault of teachers. We've got great educators like Don, who just spoke, who are more than willing to devote their time to this, yet we don't see any direction from CPS. So we'd like to see a far more robust distance learning process. Number two, I echo some of the sentiments from my colleagues at Lincoln Park High School. As a relative newcomer to the school, even though I was a community rep on the LSC last year, I just see the whole thing as handled very, very poorly. I don't want the due process rights that both the administrators that were terminated are afforded, and more, as importantly, us as stakeholders should get. I don't want that swept under the rug or forgotten about because we're in a
Mr. Lenkov,
pandemic.
30 seconds.
Thank you. As a taxpayer and as a member of the community, I think that we all deserve answers as to why this happened. And as importantly, why someone like our network chief, Laura Lemon, said that the administrator that CPS put in was let go or left the school because she didn't think it was a fit, but we all saw her grabbing a student's face on video. Thanks very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lenkov. And the next speaker, please, Mr. Bill Quinlan, speaker number 13.
I'm sorry, am I speaking?
Yes, Mr.
I
Quinlan.
didn't cut in, cut out. I'm sorry, and I guess if I'm addressing it, my name's William J. Quinlan, and I'm the parent of a sophomore at Lincoln Park High School. And let me start by saying, Senator Duvalier and the board, I certainly appreciate the time that you put forth to this. I understand it's uncompensated, and I do, believe that, what you're doing hopefully will make a difference in some children's lives. And I'm speaking to you in your capacity as a member of the board and as someone that has oversight over the bureaucracy of the administration that serves CPS and oversees, many children, including my child. And I understand that I'm speaking to you at a time when we're dealing with a pandemic and a national emergency. So I appreciate that, but we have to work with what's before us. And I understand, and I'm trying to sort of wrap up what we talked about with Lincoln Park. I certainly understand that, there's different positions with respect to the administrators as to whether they should have been removed or not. But one thing that I think is certain and critical is the idea that they were removed and the school was left in chaos. And I can say that as the parent with my son, is that people were leaving school and we're doing that. And we hear words from administrators and from everyone that it's all about the children. And we all hope that they're more than just words and that there are caring and feeling there. But I think that, like I said, no one can dispute the sort of chaos and disparity and the problems that were occurring at Lincoln. But what I didn't see, and what is disappointing, is I saw the administration draw battle lines, and I didn't see them step
You have 30
up.
seconds left.
Sure, I didn't see them step up to provide leadership and to try and solve the problem. Senator Duvalier, you talked about how you were out speaking to people, talking about the COVID-19 virus and how important that is, because you do two things, right? You understand what's going on because you need to make decisions. And two, you send a message to those children that there's leadership and there are going to be answers. That was not done at Lincoln Park. That was never done. And frankly, it's very disappointing. No one is more important than those children. There is no one in the bureaucracy that's more important. We should have sent people out to send the message that said, kids, we're here, we're going to solve the problem. And they should have looked at the LSC and said, we have a problem, we need to solve it, we may disagree, but let's care about the kids. Unfortunately, the reasonable adult in the room were the parents and the LSC. And I hope when we deal with this pandemic and it's over, that we can step back and try and solve this problem and remember why we're here and what we're trying to do. And aside from where we believe and whether removed or not, we try and solve that problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank
you.
you.
I do appreciate how difficult the job you're doing is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinlan. Mr. President, we'll continue with the speakers list. Our next speaker will be Robert Crane, speaker number 7, followed by Demetrius Hurd, speaker number 8, Juan Uribe, speaker number 12, and the last speaker from the speakers list, Mario Barnett, speaker 15. Robert Crane, please.
Hi, I'm a Sika in a cluster classroom, and we've been without a teacher since October. And I know there's several other classrooms in my school that have had long-term vacancies that have been being filled by substitutes. And so thinking, I guess, about moving forward with this remote learning project we're doing, I guess I would just like to ask you guys to think about classrooms across the city that don't have a regular teacher in the room, and what the procedure is going to be for keeping the students in those classrooms engaged. And then I have two kind of related questions. Is there going to be, while the schools are closed, are you still going to be looking to fill those positions? And kind of what is the, what ideas do we have moving forward? Because when we come back to school, in my classroom at least, like we're still going to be facing these problems of not having a full-time teacher in the room and just relying on the substitutes. And so those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Mr. President, we'll continue. Demetrius Hurd, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Demetrius Hurd. I'm the fifth-year music teacher at Fuller School of Excellence in the Bronzeville community. I'm also a proud alumni of the AUSL Chicago Teacher Residency Program, which is what brings me to this call this evening. I'd just like to speak to the rewarding and positive and an extremely preparative experience that I got in AUSL that has led me to be a successful teacher today. Just want to speak to just the classroom management and just the connecting with my students that I feel that I possess as a teacher. Given that experience of working with a mentor teacher, given that experience of receiving a master's degree, I'm a career changer. So, but I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. So just giving that alternative path to becoming a teacher by AUSL was, not only life-changing for me as a CPS graduate, a CPS alumni, being able to have that opportunity to teach students who look like me and come from the same neighborhoods that I come from, and being able to connect with students. And, my life was changed by a CPS teacher. So I'm hoping that I'm providing those same experiences and planting those same seeds in my students. So again, I just wanted to just be at this meeting today on behalf of the AUSL Chicago Teacher Residency, just to provide just some insight to my experience and to just say that I received an exceptional experience, and I would not trade it in for the world. And I'm grateful that I get to teach the same students the students who come from the same background that I come from. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Thank you for your comments. And our next speaker is going to be Juan Uribe, speaker number 12, please. Juan Uribe.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Uribe. I'm also a graduate of the AUSL Teacher Residency Program for CPS. I'm currently a middle school special education teacher and a case manager at Pablo Casals School of Excellence in the Humboldt Park community. I'd also like to talk a little bit about how the AUSL CTR prepared me for my first year of teaching. They gave me a mentor that provided me feedback to strengthen my instruction and training daily. It also prepared me by partnering with a quality university program that allowed me to be my best self and use the appropriate strategies that are research-based in my practice. And they also placed me in a community that reflects my Latino background and allowing me to connect with students and families best. So I'd also just like to thank the CTR and CPS for having that partnership. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Uribe. Thank you for your comments. And Mr. President, the last speaker from the speakers list will be Mario Barnett, please, speaker 15.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Marlo Barnett, and I'm speaking today because I received from the Employee Engagement Office that I am suspended without pay. I am an advocate across the state of Chicago for technology, and I sit on various other boards. I am suspended without pay from the Employee Engagement Office. They recommend the board to terminate my employment. I have had a hearing on the February 20th, and for the issues were I did not submit grades the first week of school, and that because I did not report student sexual harassment correctly. Those are their charges. On March 4th, I had an incident with the principal of the school where he yelled and screamed in my face in front of the class. I went out, called the police. And I went to the hospital that day. My doctor has me off now due to severe headaches from this harassment for the last 2 years at Carver School. And it seems the more I speak out about the conditions and the culture climate at Carver School, I'm the one being reprimanded, except regards to the principal, who I have witnessed harassing students and doing all sorts of things. So the employee engagement has recommended that I be fired, but yet I've contacted Mr. Revelori about different things, and I've contacted the board.
You have 30 seconds.
And I've contacted the board. I need an answer because I have no income coming in at this point, and I'm on my FMLA, or short-term disability, is being denied because, again, I'm on a suspension. So if you can make a decision, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett, for your comments. Mr. President, that concludes the speakers on the speakers list. Before we proceed with the vote on public agenda, we do have one alderman that will be speaking to the board, addressing the board. We have Alderman Sposato from the 38th Ward, please.
Thank you very much. This is Alderman Sposato, Alderman of the 38th Ward. I'd like to start off by commending Dr. Jackson, my principals, my teachers, and all the rest of the staffs at the schools for not just doing a fantastic job right now during this pandemic, but just every day. So Dr. Jackson, thank you very much. President Duvalier and board members, I'm reading this statement on behalf of Alderman Burnett, Irvin, Hopkins, Lopez, Napolitano, Roboras, Talaferro, Thompson, Villegas, and the entire Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans Columbus Day Coalition. Our coalition consists of community leaders from the African American, Hispanic, Filipino, Jewish, Irish, and Polish communities. Right now, there is nothing more important than the COVID-19 virus and the health and the well-being of the residents of the city of Chicago and the school children of Chicago Public Schools. While we stand together to fight this pandemic, our coalition remains strong and steadfast to reverse the Chicago Board of Education's decision to usurp Columbus Day. At an appropriate time, we respectfully request a response to the letter we submitted to the board on March the 4th. We look forward to celebrating annually with the CPS Indigenous Peoples Day, the last Monday of September, the day that in 2017, the state signed into law the celebration of this holiday, and we look forward to celebrating Columbus Day with the CPS on the second Monday of October. Thank you all very much for your time, and I appreciate all you do for our city.
Thank you, Alderman Sposato. Mr. President, this concludes public participation.
Board members, do you have any additional questions or comments regarding items on the public agenda? And the first item on the public agenda will be the resolution authorizing expenditures. I'd like to just indicate that we have or will be authorizing up to $75 million, but the reason we went with that figure is because we want to make sure that all the actions that need to be taken between now and the next board meeting and after that board meeting are actions that are taken in a timely manner to address this current crisis. Authorizing 75 million does not mean that we are going to spend 75 million. It could be far less than that. It could be somewhere in the middle. We don't know. That's why we're doing this authorization, just to make sure that that flexibility that is needed to address this crisis is there for our administrators. Of course, beginning with the CEO, Dr. Jackson. That's one point. The other point I want to make is that Congress is taking action on legislation that will appropriate dollars to the states to help with unemployment compensation, to help healthcare providers, to deal with corporations and others that have been hard hit by this crisis. That legislation also includes, I think, about $30 billion for education. I don't yet know exactly how those dollars are going to be distributed, but I think we can assume that some of those dollars will be available to CPS, routed through the state, I'm sure, that will be available to help cover some of the costs that we are going to be incurring and that we have incurred. How much, we don't know, but I do anticipate that there will be some federal dollars that will use to cover some of these costs. But the resolution does call for reporting on these expenditures, as you well know. Beginning in July, Dr. Jackson will be reporting to board members, and we will be kept fully informed on an ongoing basis of how those expenditures are taking place. So I want to provide any board member that may have additional comments or questions regarding this resolution before we proceed to vote on it. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but some members might have additional comments to make or questions.
Yes, I'd actually like to start, President Del Valle. So I just want to echo that this is intended to make sure that we are providing the flexibility and agility by which the leadership team can act quickly and decisively to make sure that we are responsive to this crisis that we have here, right? We don't want to be in a situation where they need to come to us for authorization for additional funds when that time does not exist, right? So we are in situations where we need to make sure we have that agility and that flexibility. I have the full confidence in the leadership team that they will exercise great judgment as they have to date and great leadership as they have to date. I also want to add to what President Del Valle said, right? It's not like we had this 75 million slush fund sitting there, right? So it's not like we have this available. So I want to make sure that we address that, because we still have to find a way to make this work, which will force us to make some either tougher decisions later on, or see what else we can get funded by the state, see what else we can get funded by the federal government. So I don't want anybody to think that we had this just sitting there and all of a sudden we can find money to make sure we fund other initiatives, right? This is a scenario that we certainly weren't planning for, but we are acting with the responsibility that we have, and then we will figure out a way to make sure how this fits into the fiduciary responsibility that we have with managing the total budget that we're allowed on an annual basis.
Thank you. Any other comments?
President Del Valle,
President Revolure.
I understand the first formal report will be on July 15th. And I was just curious, how will CPS leadership, how do they plan to keep board members and families and the community updated on the actions and the spending until that point in the next almost 4 months?
Vice President, that's a good question. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, while July 1st is the first official day in the resolution, we plan at all subsequent board meetings to provide an update on this. And Miroslava Krug, our new Chief Financial Officer, is keeping a tally of the cost of COVID as we act quickly and swiftly every single day. Of course, we were making a lot of decisions when this crisis first hit. And so keeping up with the cost of this has been a major task that Miroslava has taken on. And we will be providing the board with an update on that in the coming days. So please be on the lookout for that. So regular memos about that, obviously huge expenditures. We would share that information in real time as much as possible. But we also understand that there's a need to keep people updated and abreast throughout the next 4 months, and we fully intend to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you'll get the first update, like I said, in the coming days.
Other questions or comments?
Can you, Dr. Jackson, can you talk a little bit more, just so that folks know in the public as well, some of your priorities and in terms of how this money already, the types of things that you've had to spend money very quickly on, because as was mentioned, this is an unprecedented, all of us, this is an unprecedented situation, right? No one who is here has ever been through anything like this. And so this is an emergency, and that is why this is happening. And so to just give a sense of some of those really quick emergency response items that you need this type of flexibility for so far, and then some things perhaps that you might be anticipating. And if you have any priorities at this point in how, what you want to use some of this, what you see additional spend moving forward.
Yep. And I'll ask others on the team to chime in, but just to get started, of course, food has been a huge priority. Many of our communities are food insecure, which is no secret to any of us, but I have to tell you, it has really been just shocking and sobering to see the need from many of our families. We, on average, have distributed food packages which has 6 meals in it to 40,000 families roughly every single day. So that gives you an idea of how important this is. We've also used that funding for delivery services, which is, as I stated at the top of this, that need has ramped up. Many of our families, for a variety of reasons, cannot access the food sites because of disabilities, lack of transportation, and just other coverage issues with small children. And so we see a need in order to provide them with those services. One huge expense has been paying staff that has been working. So our food service staff, as well as our custodial staff, are receiving time and a half throughout this process. We also are paying our administrators at the school level, I believe 10% of their salary in addition to their normal salary because, they're on the front lines doing this work every single day. We talked about the e-learning, the devices, and those expenditures will continue to go up. We are trying to leverage, support from the philanthropic community, support from big businesses, specifically with regard to access to internet. So I know the mayor is calling on a few of those big companies to really step up. Hopefully we can save money there. I do want to underscore a point that President Del Valle made at the top of this. While managing everything that you see and don't see, one of the things that I've been spending a lot of my time on with the support of our IGA office, Frank Bilecki and Chuck Swirsky, is working with our elected officials in Washington, D.C. to do two things. One, to really talk about the need right now. So the additional money that is going to be distributed to K through 12 districts, as well as the state, to support public education through this first stimulus bill, we advocated and really tried to help explain what's happening in CPS and really build a case for this first wave of funding. We've also started to talk about what's going to happen afterwards. I'm a big planner, and right now my focus is on what I'm terming the aftermath of COVID. There's a lot to think about. I feel like we have a really good plan and a handle on what's going on now. I say that knowing that things can change tomorrow. My leadership is being challenged in many ways because we have to learn and listen and lead all at the same time. But a big part of this is about what happens next. So there are some decisions that we're going to have to make in order to recover some of the loss of learning. To provide additional social emotional support for our students. There are things that are going on. What I said to my team today is we won't know the full cost of this until this is over, and the cost will be far more than any dollar amount we can put out there. And so that truly has been the focus. But I'll let Arnie or Latanya chime in if I miss any big ticket items. But if this pandemic has taught me anything, it's just that we don't know everything. And so much of this is to give us the flexibility to respond quickly. And we thank you guys for the support that you've given us thus far. It has enabled us to respond quickly and aggressively. And we continue to do that and to try to do an even better job in the coming days and weeks and perhaps even months. Arnie or Latanya, I don't know if you wanted to chime in, or Phil. You're good. Okay. But again, we'll keep you guys updated, and please don't stop asking questions. I know you won't anyway, but.
Any other questions and comments before we proceed to vote on the public agenda items? Okay, we will now proceed with the vote on public agenda items. Madam Secretary.
President Del Valle, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I had trouble unmuting myself. I just have a question, not necessarily about the resolution, but about all this emergency planning in general, and how is CPS or is CPS anticipating meeting what may be rather long-term needs of children with special medical issues and other conditions that may need also some kind of coordinated response from several agencies?
Right now, special education has been a huge issue. So I'll take that part first and then go back to the special medical needs. We have been working first to clarify how IEPs and IEP meetings can be conducted so that we don't lose sight of the compliance needs and the ability for teams to speak with parents about the needs of their students. At the end of the day, once this is over, we need to be able to hit the ground running. And whether that's in a few weeks from now, months from now, next school year, we just want to be ready to launch when that happens. And so that's part one. As far as medical, CPS has a hotline where we have been fielding a lot of calls. Most of those are focused on food, some related to employment, some just outreach, clarity around COVID. But what we have been trying to message first is to support the governor's stay-at-home order. And that is critically important. What I've been saying to people is the longer it takes us to be diligent and disciplined about this, the longer we will be in this. And so even on days like today when it's warm, you know, seeing people on the beach, I'm not going there, but these are the points that I'm making. We really have to start with making sure we follow the rules. Beyond just getting out of this isolation or quarantine space is it really is incumbent upon us to all be good neighbors because we are overwhelming and taxing our healthcare system, which gets to your question. And so right now, I think the state of Illinois and the medical systems here are doing a good job managing, but we haven't reached the peak yet. That's what I've been hearing. I'm no healthcare expert. And so what we've been trying to do is really message to people what are essential services, pointing them in the right direction, but also following the guidance that we're getting from our Chief Health Officer, Dr. Kenneth Fox, following the guidance that we've been getting from Dr. Arwady, who is the Commissioner of Public Health for the city, as well as the state, and really making sure that we're using good judgment as we exercise that. So this is one of many things that are critical and important needs that we really are just finding a new normal during this crisis, which goes back to my first point, which is the sooner we all become disciplined around this, the sooner we can see light at the end of the tunnel and we can get back to normal, because there are needs out there outside of COVID that, you know, we're having trouble addressing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask one other related question, Dr. Jackson? Because it was mentioned in the public comment as well, but I think you kind of just were nearby it as well. The idea of the fact that everyone's being asked to stay home right now, but we know that we have a lot of students in temporary living situations. Mm-hmm. And can you speak to some of the things that CPS is doing to reach out to those families in particular?
First, those families are prioritized in a lot of the work that we're doing. When we identified our sites, the food delivery is another place where we've tried to prioritize those families. But because our students in temporary living situations are sometimes the hardest students to reach out to, I would say those who are living in double up situations with other family members in a home, I would say the outreach has been good. They probably have had access to all the information that everyone else has had. Those who are either living on the street or places where we can't really locate them, that has become a bigger challenge. And so we have relied on the City of Chicago's DFSS department to help support us with that. And I would say that's an ongoing struggle. We know that these people show up at all types of places to get support, but we want to keep messaging that the schools are a public trust. They are a place you can go in the community. It doesn't matter what school you attend, the nearest school that is a food distribution site, people should be accessing that in order to get help. But this is a problem that we are addressing. Like I said, I think the people who are living in double up situations, we've been able to access, but people who may be on the street, that's been harder. And we've had to work in collaboration with the city's DFSS department.
Mr. President, this is Dwayne Truss. Yeah, I just want to just keep emphasizing, I guess, because it's always in my DNA about the fact that, just tap into the community partners because obviously, I mean, sometimes, in my civic life, that's what we tap into when we really have to have these challenges is to work with the community organizations and partners to assist in minimizing or taking down that barrier because of the current condition of those families. So I just wanted to just make that comment.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Dwayne. And a lot of them have been helping, like Breakthrough Urban Ministries is one that stands out, that has been doing that work, and there are countless others across the city.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll proceed. Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will begin with items on the public agenda, read the board report numbers and brief titles. I will begin with resolutions and a policy. These items do require a vote. RS1 is the resolution authorizing expenditures and actions in response to the coronavirus disease 2019. And Mr. President, for the record, I would like to note that RS1 will be revised to reflect 2 corrections. On page 1, the 7th whereas clause will be deleted. And on page 2, section 3G, the first appearance of the word "and" in the sentence will be deleted. The final version of RS1, Mr. President, will be included in the agenda of action. Moving on.
Could I have Joe quickly explain the deletion of the 1 paragraph?
Yes, in the drafting, we had deleted language regarding policy and rule suspensions and modifications in the resolve section, and we neglected to remove it from the recitals. So this just makes the resolve section and the recitals aligned. It was an error in not deleting that section. The second change that Stella described is simply a typo in which an extra "and" was added to a paragraph.
Okay.
Thank you, General Counsel. Moving on, Mr. President, we then have RS2. This is the resolution to appoint members to the local school councils. And PO1 is the amendment for the policy on governance of alternative and small schools. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Sotelo?
Yes.
Member Truss?
Yes.
Member Todd Breland?
Yes.
Vice President Rivaluri?
Yes.
Member Melendez?
Yes.
Member Rome?
Yes.
President Del Valle?
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. These items are adopted by the board. Mr. President, I'll continue with additional items on the public agenda that do require a vote. We have EX1 for the transfer of funds. PR1 is to authorize the second and final renewal agreements with the International Baccalaureate Organization. PR2 is to authorize a new agreement with the College Entrance Examination Board. PR3 is to authorize the first and second renewal agreements with the Chicago Debate Commission. PR4 is to authorize new agreements with Pacific Educational Group for race and equity training services. PR5 is an amendment for the first and second renewal agreements for the various contractors for general contracting services. PR6 is to authorize a new agreement with WW Granger for the purchase of maintenance, repair, and operation supplies. PR7 is the monthly award of construction contracts and changes to the construction contracts for the capital improvement program. PR8 is to authorize new agreements with various vendors for the purchase and lease of output devices for print management services. PR9 is to authorize an extension of agreement with Accurate Biometrics. This is for the fingerprinting services and criminal background checks. We then have PR10 This is to authorize the second and final renewal agreements with various vendors for an executive search firm. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
All right, if there are no objections from board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So noted. Mr. President, I'll continue with additional items on the public agenda that do not require a vote. We have PR 11. This is the Chief Procurement Officer report for January 2020 and the delegated authority exercised under Board Rule 713. Moving on to EX2, this is the report on principal contracts renewals. And then we have AR1, the report on board report rescissions. And Mr. President, these items just need to be accepted by the board.
Please mark received and filed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We will now proceed with the vote on executive session items. Madam Secretary, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will continue with the executive session items from the General Counsel, and I will begin with an attorney appointment. This item does require a vote. The attorney appointment is to transfer and appoint Assistant Deputy General Counsel, Department of Law, Elizabeth K. Barton. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Sotelo?
Yes.
Member Truss?
Yes.
Member Todd Breland?
Yes.
Vice President Rivaluri?
Yes.
Member Melendez?
Yes.
Member Rome?
Yes.
And President Del Valle?
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. This item is adopted by the board. Mr. President, I'll continue with additional items with council retentions and settlements, and these items do require a vote. First report is to authorize retention of the law firm Ryder Burns LLP. The second report is to authorize continued retention of the law firm Ice Miller LLP. The third report is to authorize continued retention of the law firm Lanier Muchin Ltd. And the fourth report is to authorize continued retention of the Soto's law firm PC. I will continue with settlements. The first report is workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Laro Cap, case number 11WC 1192. The second report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Carrie McNitty, case number 05WC 3813. The third report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Lori J. Road, case number 12WC 017794. The fourth report, workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Versada Nichols, case numbers 10WC 45346 and 10WC 45347. The fifth report is workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Josefina Crichton, case number 19WC 16957. The sixth report is the workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Blanche Flossman, case numbers 14WC 6209 and 14WC 6210. The seventh report is workers' compensation payment for lump sum settlement for Michael A. Taylor, case number 15WZ 003223. And the eighth report, personal injury, authorized payment of settlement for Mary Soaps, case number 18L 4056. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So noted. Mr. President, I'll continue with items from the Chief Executive Officer and proceed with principal contracts. These items do require a vote. The first report is the appointed principal contracts new. And the second report is the report on principal contracts for renewals ALSC. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So noted. I will continue with an item from the board, and this item does require a vote. This is the resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Pamela Oliver, tenured teacher assigned to Steinmetz High School. And for the record, Mr. President, this resolution accepts the hearing officer's recommendation to one, reinstate this individual. And Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
If there are no objections, Please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So noted. And Mr. President, I believe that Board Member Sotelo has a motion, please.
I move that the board adopt the minutes of the closed session meeting of February 26, 2020 pursuant to section 2.06 of the Open Meetings Act.
Is there
Board
a
members
second?
reviewed these minutes and determined that the need for confidentiality exists. Therefore, the minutes of the closed session meeting held on February 26, 2020 shall be maintained as confidential and not available for public inspection.
Now is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Sotelo,
Yes?
Member Truss,
Yes.
Member Todd Breland,
Yes.
Vice President Rivelluri,
Yes.
Member Melendez,
Yes.
Member Rome,
Yes.
and President Del Valle.
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. This motion is adopted by the board. And I believe Vice President Rivelluri has a motion, please.
I move that the record of proceedings of the regular board meeting of February 26, 2020, prepared by the board secretary be approved, and that such records of proceedings be posted on the Chicago Board of Education website in accordance with section 2.06B of the Open Meetings Act.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Member Sotelo,
Yes?
Member Truss,
Yes.
thank you. Member Todd Breland,
Yes.
Vice President Rivelluri,
Yes.
Member Melendez,
Yes.
Member Rome,
Yes.
and President Del Valle.
Yes.
We have 7 ayes, 0 nays. This motion is adopted by the board. And Mr. President, there are no further items on the executive agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Can you strike the gavel, Mr. President? Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Aye.
Be safe, everyone.
You too.
All right. See you soon.
Take care.
Good job, Estella.